Imagine this moment. You're in Rome. You're not waking up in your room, not to the familiar buzz of your smartphone on the nightstand, nor to the distant hum of a waking metropolis outside your window. You slowly open your eyes, and above you, there's no familiar suspended ceiling with built-in lights. Instead, there are heavy, roughly hewn wooden beams, darkened in places by time and soot. Between them, uneven plaster, painted a warm terracotta color, cracked in spots. The air, God, this air. It's thick, dense. Everything is mixed into it. The warmth from stone that never cooled overnight after yesterday's scorching heat, the slightly sour smell of old wood, the pungent aroma of dried herbs hanging somewhere under the ceiling, and a light. Persistent smoke. Down below, someone has already lit an oven, or more likely, another workshop has caught fire. Fires here are just a part of daily life. Where are you? The answer doesn't come immediately, but that doesn't make it any less shocking. You're in Rome, ancient Rome. Not in some tourist reconstruction with clean actors and costumes, but in the real, living, stuffy, and noisy belly of an ancient metropolis. And here arises the main question that has tormented historians and writers for centuries, and now you have to answer it. Would you survive here for even one day? I'm not asking about a week or a year. I'm asking about 24 hours, just one day. But not as a tourist with a camera around their neck, walking safe routes with headphones on, but as a real inhabitant, flesh and blood of this city. With all its habits, smells, noise, social elevators, and underground sewers. With its gossip, bread lines, inheritance taxes, countless gods, and the mandatory trip to the baths. Today, with the first rays of the sun just beginning to gild the tops of the hills, we will live this day together, from dawn to dusk. But there's one condition. You're not a listener here, not an observer. You're a participant. You're walking these narrow, crooked streets. You're bumping shoulders with hurrying passers-by. You're nodding to a neighbor who's grumbling as he comes down the stairs from the floor above. You're standing in the crowd at the Forum, feeling other people's ribs with your elbows. You're eating right on the street, burning your fingers on a hot flatbread. You're haggling yourself hoarse over an amphora of olive oil. You're sweating in the cramped, hot rooms of the baths, only to scrape your skin clean an hour later. And maybe, in the evening, if you have any strength left, you'll find yourself in an open-air theater, or you'll collapse onto your hard bed without even undressing, just dreaming for this endless day to finally end. So, are you ready? Are you sure? Then, quiet. Listen. In Rome, morning doesn't start with coffee, not with cappuccino, not even with a croissant. It starts with noise. Dawn. Rome awakens. So, you've opened your eyes, but you can't afford the luxury of lounging in bed. In ancient Rome, there's simply no such thing as sleeping in until 10. First, there's the light. The sun is the main and merciless alarm clock, rising early and rising ready for battle. If you have any brains at all, you get up with the first rays to get things done before the unbearable midday heat sets in. But there's a second reason your sleep will be interrupted. It's much more mundane and unpleasant. If you live in an insula, and that's an apartment building where 90% of Rome's population is crammed, you'll be woken not by the sun, but by the neighbor above. You'll hear him start stomping in his Caligay heavy sandals on the wooden floor. He'll be cursing, moving some heavy household item and pouring out water Yes, water. That's a whole other story. You probably think that since the Romans built aqueducts and invented concrete, they had perfect sanitation everywhere for everyone. Nothing of the kind. The great Cloaca Maxima certainly worked and drained sewage from the forum and wealthy quarters, but this luxury didn't reach the upper floors of the insale. So there was a simple rule. Everything that accumulated in the apartment overnight had to be disposed of in the morning. The easiest way was to pour it out the window, with a shout of "Aqua," water, to warn unwary passers-by below. So, the first thing you clearly hear upon waking is the polyphonic noise of the street, already penetrating the thin walls of your cubbyhole. The cries of merchants hurrying to claim the best spots at the market. The braying of donkeys. These animals are the main trucks of antiquity, and their grating voice cuts through the air. The clatter of wooden cartwheels on the uneven stone pavement. The calls of the watchman. And somewhere in the background, that very splash of water, falling from the height of the third floor. You get up. Time to look around. Will you get up? Time to look around? Option A, you live in an insula poor quarter. Congratulations, you're in the thick of life. Your room is one of many in a building that clings to another such building, and together they form a tight labyrinth. The room is small, dark, often without a window facing the street. The window opens onto an inner well courtyard, which hardly gets any sun. You most likely have no hearth or kitchen. Cooking inside is madness. Fire is Rome's main enemy. Everyone remembers the Great Fire under Nero, but small fires happen here every day. So you'll buy your food on the street. Furniture is minimal, a hard bed couch or just a pallet, a couple of stools, a chest for clothes, a toilet, forget it. Either a public one or that same chamber pot. Option B. You live in a domus wealthy house. If you belong to the equestrian or senatorial class, your world is different. Your house is single-story but occupies a lot of space. It faces the street with blank walls and rare small windows. Life here flows inward, into the courtyard. You wake up in your bedroom, the cubiculum. There's silence around you, because the walls are thicker and the slaves have already prepared everything. Behind a thin partition, your personal secretary rustles papers. In the atrium, the main hall with an opening in the roof, water murmurs in the impluvium pool, where rainwater collects. Here it doesn't smell like the street, but like home. Beeswax used to polish furniture, olive oil in the lamps, expensive fabrics, sometimes light incense from a burner. But don't be fooled. Even wealthy Romans get up early, because the day is short and the city demands your presence. Clients are already crowding at the entrance, waiting for the morning greeting. Political intrigues never sleep. You need to check accounts from your estates. You need to write a letter to a friend in Greece. You need to be in shape. And here you are, standing barefoot on the cold floor, or warm, if you have slaves who have lit the hypocaust, the underfloor heating system, asking yourself the most important question of the day. Who will you be? A simple glassblower artisan? A philosopher's student? A trader of African grain? A freedman who just yesterday received his tablet of freedom? Or maybe you're a client whose task is to show up at your patron's house in the morning. Because remember, in Rome, morning is not about meditation and plans for the day. Morning in Rome is the first step on the social ladder. And if you miss it, you might just fall off that ladder entirely. Morning routine, clothing, it's all the same as the smells and keys. So, you've gotten up. Feel like washing up? Let's see how a Roman's morning toilet goes. And let's immediately take off the rose-colored glasses. Hot water is a luxury available either to the very wealthy slaves heat water in the kitchen and bring it in special vessels, or to visitors of the baths, but you'll go there later. The morning starts with a damp cloth. You dip a piece of fabric into a basin of water, often cold, wring it out, and wipe your face. That's pretty much it for washing. The rich can afford a slave to pour water over their hands. But more often than not, washing is a procedure combined with body care. The Romans, oddly enough, are obsessed with oils. They believe that cleanliness is achieved not with soap, which they also know, but it's harsh, but with oil. First, you rub your body with olive oil mixed with herbs. It absorbs dirt and sweat. Then you scrape off this oily film along with the dirt using a special tool, the strigil. It's a curved, blunt knife made of metal or horn. So, if you see a Roman with shiny skin, know this: he's either just applied oil or he's just scraped it off and is now clean as a whistle. Oil is a universal cosmetic, cleanser, and moisturizer all in one. And teeth? You think Romans smelled of fumes and garlic? Nothing of the sort. Oral hygiene was important. Of course, they didn't have toothpaste in a tube, but they had powders. They could be made from crushed bone, eggshells, pumice. They often added myrrh or other herbs for fresh breath. Some used special toothpicks. Others chewed aromatic resins. There was also an extreme method: urine. Yes, human urine contains ammonia, which whitens quite well. It was specially collected in pots on the streets and used by launderers for washing clothes and, some brave souls, for rinsing their mouths. I wouldn't recommend trying this hack at home, but the fact remains: Romans cared about the whiteness of their smiles. The costume question. Now clothing. You take off the coarse woolen tunic you slept in. Yes, Romans don't know pajamas. You put on a clean tunic. That's the base, the foundation. A tunic is essentially a long shirt with or without sleeves, belted at the waist. Length matters. For men it's knee length, for women, to the ankles. But if you are a Roman citizen and want to go out in public to the forum, to court, to an official ceremony, you'll have to put on a toga. And here's where it gets really interesting. And teeth? You think Romans smelled of fumes and garlic? Nothing of the sort. Oral hygiene was important. Of course, they didn't have toothpaste in a tube, but they had powders. They could be made from crushed bone, eggshells, pumice. They often added myrrh or other herbs for fresh breath. Some used special toothpicks. Others chewed aromatic resins. There was also an extreme method: urine. Yes, human urine contains ammonia, which whitens quite well. It was specially collected in pots on the streets and used by launderers for washing clothes and, some brave souls, for rinsing their mouths. I wouldn't recommend trying this hack at home, but the fact remains: Romans cared about the whiteness of their smiles. The costume question. Now clothing. You take off the coarse woolen tunic you slept in. Yes, Romans don't know pajamas. You put on a clean tunic. That's the base, the foundation. A tunic is essentially a long shirt with or without sleeves, belted at the waist. Length matters. For men it's knee length, for women, to the ankles. But if you are a Roman citizen and want to go out in public to the forum, to court, to an official ceremony, you'll have to put on a toga. And here's where it gets really interesting. The toga is not just clothing, it's a curse. It's 6 meters of woolen fabric that you have to somehow wrap around yourself so it doesn't slip down every 5 minutes. The toga is the symbol of a Roman citizen. Without a toga, you're nobody. But in a toga, you're like in a straitjacket. Imagine spending the whole day in a huge woolen blanket draped over your left shoulder, leaving your right arm free. but it's constantly trying to come undone. You can't run fast. In the heat, it's suffocating. In the cold, it's not particularly warm. It's not functional. It's declarative. It's your three-piece suit, tie, and tuxedo all at once. The poor, of course, go without togas, in just tunics. Slaves make do with a loincloth, but if you're in a toga, watch out, you must behave with dignity. Women wear the stola, a long dress over a tunic, and jewelry, lots of jewelry. Roman matrons load themselves with gold, so much that sometimes they can't walk fast. And yes, cosmetics. This isn't the Middle Ages with paleness and purity. Roman women actively use makeup. White lead, sometimes poisonous, lead-based, rouge, antimony for eyebrows, eyeshadow, face masks made from dough and milk. Perfumes are a whole other story. And here we come to a topic without which Rome is not Rome. The smell. The olfactory sense of a modern person, raised in a world of deodorants and air fresheners, would be simply crushed. Rome smells, and it smells strongly. It's a complex, multi-layered aroma. The base layer, bread and smoke. There are thousands of bakeries here, and the smell of fresh bread mixes with smoke from forges, bakeries, and constant fires. The second layer, the smell of the human body. Sweat, unwashed feet, oils. Thousands of people who walk a lot and bathe little until the baths. The third layer, fish and salt. The fish sauce garum, the hallmark of Roman cuisine, stinks so much it could make an unaccustomed person vomit. It's made by fermenting fish entrails in the sun. This smell hangs over the port and the merchants' quarters. The fourth layer, manure and unwashed wool. Rome is full of animals, horses, donkeys, mules, cattle being driven to market. Their waste on the streets. And over all of this, flowers and incense. Rich people in temples try to overpower the stench with frankincense, myrrh, rose petals. It's like expensive perfume sprayed over a garbage dump. You fasten your tunic with a fibula brooch. Adjust your sandal straps, sturdy boots with nails to prevent slipping on the stones. Take a deep breath of this mixture and open the door. The air hits your face. The city engulfs you completely. The streets of Rome, noise, dust, and dangers. You step out of your entrance or your house door and take your first step onto a Roman street. Forget about wide avenues and sidewalks. The streets here are more like gorges. The insulae rise 3, 4, even 5 stories high. They loom over you, almost touching with their cornices at the top. The sun only peeks in here at noon. I don't even love the world that seems to be a star. So there's always a damp semi-darkness and coolness, which, however, doesn't save you from the stench. Ropes are strung between the walls, drying laundry and rags, right above your head. From open windows, if they exist, come voices, children crying, cursing. On every corner, Cabernet shops. They're open right onto the street. From one comes the smell of fried meat. From another, the sharp odor of tanned leather. From a third, cheap sour wine, sold directly from an amphora. Merchants beckon customers, each trying to outshout their neighbor. Somewhere a child cries. Somewhere an orator at a crossroads preaches about the end of the world. The clink of coins in a money changer's shop. The hammering of metal from a forge. You walk, pressing against the walls to let a litter carrying some important matron pass. The litter bearers shout, "Make way!" The crowd parts, but reluctantly. You feel small and vulnerable, but at the same time, incredibly alive. Everything happens here and now. Trade turns into an argument into a fight. a fight into reconciliation over a cup of wine in that same tabarna. Next to you might stand a slave, a senator, a prostitute, a legionnaire on leave, a Gallic trader of Amphorae. Everything is mixed together, and you walk. You walk to where all of Rome moves in the morning. You walk down, into the valley between the hills, to where the Forum stands. Morning at the Forum. Patrons, clients, and the power of words. You emerge from the narrow alleys into an open space. The Roman Forum is not just a square, it's the nerve center. It's the place where all lines of power, trade, and gossip converge. The Forum is already boiling. There's a sea of people. The white togas of senators flash among the dark tunics of commoners. It smells of sweat, perfume, and history. Around you are majestic basilicas, temples, rostra columns decorated with the prows of enemy ships, and everywhere, statues. But we didn't come here to admire architecture. We came to become part of the main morning ritual, the salutatio. The social elevator. You are a client. Imagine you're not part of the cream of society. Little money, no connections. But you have to live, and preferably, live well. There's a way out. Find a patron. A patron is a rich and influential person. A senator, an equestrian, a successful freedman. You go to him in the morning, greet him, hence the word, salutatio, and show him attention. In return, the patron might give you money, food, protection in court, recommend you for a profitable deal or a position. Sounds humiliating? From the perspective of a modern person used to personal boundaries, yes. From a Roman's point of view, it's a normal social network. You're not a beggar, you're a client. It's an ancient tradition of Darlin. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours relationships. You enter the atrium of his house, or meet him at an agreed spot in the Forum. You're dressed in your best tunic toga, if you have one. You smile, bow, say pleasant things. You need to be noticeable, but not intrusive. He might remember you, or he might drive you away if you're a nuisance. Around you are dozens of other clients. Each hopes the patron is generous today. And here comes the moment of truth. The patron distributes sportulae. This word means little basket. In the past, they actually gave food in them. Bread, olives, a piece of meat. Nowadays, they more often give small coins. You receive your dole and step back. The day hasn't been wasted. You have a few coppers to buy food or pay for a spot at the baths. The Forum as theater and court. But you don't go far. The Forum is too interesting. Orators are speaking here. Listen, that man in a snow-white toga with a narrow purple stripe, a candidate for office, is haranguing the crowd. He speaks of Rome's greatness, his own merits, how he brought cheap grain from Sicily. The crowd buzzes, some support him, some whistle. There's no television here. A politician must be able to captivate a crowd with his voice. Nearby, a court session is in progress. It can be held right in the open air. Judges sit on curule chairs. A lawyer also, essentially, an orator holds forth before them, gesticulating so wildly, it seems he might faint from the intensity of his passion. He's defending some provincial accused of fraud. Onlookers surround them in a tight ring, commenting, placing bets. Will he be acquitted or not? You move on and hear whispers. Here is the true Roman art, the art of gossip. Did you hear? Licinia is having another affair with a gladiator. Her husband's in Greece and they say grain prices in Egypt have dropped. If Claudius manages to buy, he'll make a fortune. Did you see the omen? Yesterday on the Capitoline, an eagle dropped a snake right at a senator's feet. Is it war? Peace? You stand in the crowd and absorb it all. The word in Rome is a weapon. Skillful speech can lift you from rags to riches. One carelessly dropped word can destroy a reputation built over years. They value wits here. They quote Virgil and Horace here. Here, if you're tongue-tied, you're nobody. And here's a question for you, right now. Would you like to possess Cicero's gift of persuasion? To have the crowd fall silent when you speak? For your word to decide fates? Or would you prefer to remain silent in a corner, afraid of saying something foolish? Work and business. How everyone makes a living. The sun climbs higher. The crowd at the forum gradually disperses. Everyone goes about their own business. Rome is a giant anthill, and now we'll peek into its different corners. If you are an artisan, you go to your workshop, which is often also your home. It's most likely another taberna, open to the street. You're a shoemaker. Around you are pieces of leather, tools, lasts, the smell of pitch and sweat. The work is monotonous and hard. You sit hunched over all day. The sun beats on your back, or conversely, a cold wind blows under the awning. But you can't stop. You have to feed your family. Next to you works your slave or apprentice. He hands you wax thread. You hammer tiny nails into the sole. The hammering pounds in your temples. If you're a blacksmith or jeweler, add the heat from the forge, sparks, the risk of burning your eyelashes. Work in Rome is heavy physical labor, lasting from dawn to dusk with a short break for lunch. If you are a merchant, you open your shop. Your goods are olives, wine, amphorae, fabrics. You have to be loud. If you sit quietly in a corner, you won't sell anything. You shout, "Fresh figs, the sweetest in Rome! Wine from Crete, divine nectar!" Nearby is a competitor selling the same thing. You hate each other but smile at customers. You learn to distinguish an honest man from a thief by their face. You learn to haggle so that the customer leaves satisfied and you don't end up at a loss. Coins jingle in the leather purse tied to your belt. If you are a slave, this is the hardest lot. Your day began before dawn. You got up earlier than anyone in the house. Your life is not your own. You could be a domestic slave. That's lucky. In quotes. You have to be invisible, yet anticipate your master's wishes. You must bring water for washing, hand him his tunic, whiten his sandals with chalk. You sleep in a cubbyhole under the stairs, eat scraps from your master's table. You are always under control, always under threat of a flogging or sale to a rural estate, where life is infinitely harder. If you're a slave in an ergastulum, a prison for slaves on an estate or at a mill, it's hell. You're chained, you turn millstones, grind grain in the dark, eat thin gruel. Life expectancy there is a few years. And here, standing in the midst of this great city, you have to ask yourself an uncomfortable question. Would you want to be a Roman if it meant you owned a slave? Or, even more terrifying, if you yourself could become one? Rome's grandeur, these marble temples and victorious legions, are built on the sweat and blood of slaves. It's a system where a person is a thing. If you are a child, now this is a small miracle. If you're born into a middle-income or wealthy family, you have a chance. You're taught to read and write. Often the teacher is a Greek slave. The Greek language in Rome is like English in the modern world, the language of culture, education, and wealth. You learn Homer by heart, write with wax on wooden tablets. Your main duty is to obey your elders and prepare to become a worthy citizen. But if you're a poor child, you have no childhood. You start helping your parents early, carrying water from the fountain, selling flowers on the corner, herding geese, looking after younger siblings. You don't learn multiplication tables. You learn to survive in this cruel world where might makes right. Rome is a city of opportunities, yes. A freedman could get rich and give his children an education. But Rome is also a city of monstrous inequality, where on one pole there is marble and silk, and on the other, hunger and filth. Midday meals, what and where you eat. The sun is at its zenith. You feel hungry. Time to refuel. And here you'll make a discovery. Most Romans don't cook at home. Remember the cramped insulae, the danger of open fire, the lack of kitchens. Home is a place for sleeping, not for cooking. Food is bought on the street. The city is literally dotted with thermopolia. This is ancient Roman fast food. Imagine a stone counter with large clay jars, dolia, built into it. Inside them is ready-to-eat food. There might be stewed beans with onion and lard, a filling in cheap dish, lentil soup with mint, vegetables, turnips, cabbage, carrots, seasoned with vinegar. Meat, less often and more expensive. Usually pork or chicken. Beef is rare. Oxen are kept for plowing. Bread, round, flat, dense. It can fill you up for the whole day. Wine diluted with water. Drinking undiluted wine was considered bad form, the domain of barbarians. Wine was diluted in ratios of 1:2, 1:3, sometimes more. They added honey and spices. You approach the counter. You approach the counter, often a freedman or a Greek. Sizes you up. You hand over a coin. He fills your bowl with stew, gives you a hunk of bread. Eat with a fork? No, forks are unknown. They don't sit at a table. They eat standing, right there on the street, leaning against a wall. Or they go to a nearby portico for some shade. Around you, noise, hubbub, conversations. Someone loudly discusses politics. Someone laughs at a crude joke. Next to you stands a legionnaire, chewing bread and eyeing a passing girl. A bit further, an old woman feeds scraps to a dog. And here's the main question for your hygiene. Would you risk drinking the local water? Rome is a city of aqueducts. The water in fountains flows constantly. It's clean, from mountain springs. But how is it stored in a thermopolium? In what kind of amphorae? Was that bowl washed? Diseases here are rampant. Dysentery is common. That's exactly why wine is so popular. Even diluted, it partially kills bacteria, or at least, Romans believe so. Fountain water is for the poor and the desperate. And again, about taste. Romans love spices, pepper, cumin, coriander, celery, lavender, juniper, and of course, garum, that famous fish sauce. Its smell, it permeates the walls. It's a concentrated essence of fermented fish guts. For a Roman, it's like salt or soy sauce for us. They season everything with it. If you eat a Roman dish without garum, it's not tasty, they'd say. To you, it would most likely taste like rotten fish. But tastes are relative. You finish eating, wipe your hands on your tunic impolite. But who hasn't sinned, and feel the heavy food weighing your body down like lead? Time for a siesta. Midday. Heat, shade, and the Roman rhythm. The sun blazes mercilessly. It's that southern Italian sun, from which there is no escape. Movement on the streets dies down. Even the eternal cries of merchants fall silent. Romans, like modern Mediterranean dwellers, know the value of a midday rest. Those who have a house retreat into its cool depths. Those who work try to find shade under the porticos, long covered galleries stretching along many streets and forums. It's cooler there. A breeze blows. Some just sit on temple steps and doze, covering their faces with the edge of their tunic. Life doesn't stop completely, but it slows down. This is the time when you don't want to do anything. Just sit and watch the play of light and shadow on the stones. And it's precisely at this moment you realize it's time to go where you can truly rest, wash off the sweat and grime, and also catch up on the latest news. Time for the baths. The baths, public baths, gossip, and the ancient social network. The Thermae baths are not just baths. The Thermae are a religion, a gym, an interest club, a library, and a restaurant all in one. They are the greatest invention of Roman civilization for leisure. You approach a massive building. It's huge. Walls of concrete, yes, Roman concrete, faced with marble, domes, columns, statues in niches. The entrance fee is a pittance and free for children. Emperors deliberately built luxurious thermae and made entry cheap or free, so the people would be fed, content, and not riot. Bread and circuses, that's the slogan, but you could add and baths to it. You enter. The first thing that strikes you is the acoustics. The hum of voices echoes off the marble walls, grating a constant steady noise. 1. Apoditerium, changing room. You undress completely. You leave your clothes in a niche or on a bench. And here's the risk. Thieves exist here too. So either you keep glancing at your belongings, or you have a slave who sits and guards them while you bathe. Rich people come with a whole entourage of slaves carrying oils, linens, strigils. 2. Paliestra gymnasium. Before steaming, you need to warm up. You go out into the inner courtyard, bathed in sunlight. Here young men throw the discus, wrestle, box with punching bags, play ball. Bowl games are a particular passion. There was even a game similar to handball. You can join in. Sweat streams down your body. It's good for you. 3. Tepidarium, warm room. After exercising, you enter the warm room. The temperature here is pleasant and relaxing. The air is humid. You sit on a marble bench, getting used to the warmth. The walls here have a double lining, with hot air circulating inside from the furnace. You begin to sweat lightly. 4. Caldarium, hot room. This is the heart of the baths. It's hot and humid here, like the tropics. Steam hangs in the air, your eyes mist over. You breathe with difficulty, but it's a pleasant languor. In the corner is a pool of hot water, alveus. You immerse yourself in it, and heat pierces your body. You sit up to your neck in water, relaxing your muscles. Next to you might sit a senator, a freedman, or a slave if his master allowed. Here, everyone is equal. Almost. 5. Massage and strigil. Having heated up to the state of a boiled lobster, you get out. Oil is applied to you. A slave masseur, or you yourself, begins to rub it into your skin. Then comes the strigil, that same scraper. Other slaves, or visitors, skillfully scrape off the oil along with sweat and dirt. Your skin begins to breathe and shine. 6. Frigidarium, cold room. The final touch, a cold pool. You plunge or carefully descend the steps into the icy water. Your heart stops for a second, then your body explodes with energy. Blood rushes to your skin. You feel reborn. But the main thing about the baths is not the procedures themselves. It's the socializing. In the baths, you meet friends, close deals, discuss the latest gossip. Did you hear? Another scandal on the Palatine? So-and-so's wife. Who were you voting for in the elections? I heard that candidate is handing out 100 sesterces to each client. I have an idea. Let's start a joint venture trading African pottery. I know a captain in Ostia. There might be a library with papyrus scrolls. There might be a garden for strolling. There might be shops selling snacks and drinks. You can spend half the day in the baths. It's a way of life. You sit in the warm water of the caldarium, listening to the hum, looking at the mosaic floor with dolphins, and think, isn't this the ideal social network? Only instead of soulless likes, live glances, instead of internet comments, whispers and laughter over real stories, and instead of posts, real live people with their destinies. After the baths, errands, meetings, small pleasures, you leave the baths feeling renewed. It even seems that that doesn't mean that you can watch the post on something that's near you. Your blood flows faster. It's time to take care of any remaining business. You might stop by the market, the Misellum, the Arch Day. It's a world of its own. Everything is arranged by type here. Marble counters grown with fruit, grapes, figs, apples, pears, vegetables, fish in aquariums, meat butchered right in front of the customer. The smell of spices is dizzying. Merchants grab your arm, beckoning you to them. You need to be sharp here. They might cheat you, or slip you something not fresh. You haggle heatedly, argue, prove that the neighbor's is cheaper. Finally, you shake on it. You put your purchases in a basket that you carry yourself, or your slave carries. If you're wealthier, you think about the upcoming dinner, what dishes to order the cook to prepare, which wine to open, whom to invite as guests. Or maybe you're not going home, but to the barber. Roman men meticulously attend to shaving and haircuts. The barber shop is also a meeting place for gossip, a little open-air club. And amidst this business bustle, you suddenly notice a small altar at a crossroads. Rome reminds you of itself again. Gods everywhere, small prayers and big fears. You pass by an altar of the Lares, the domestic and street guardian spirits. On it are a few flowers, some grain, a piece of bread. This isn't ostentatious piety. It's everyday religion. A Roman lives in a world populated by gods and spirits. They aren't far away on Mount Olympus, like with the Greeks. They are here. Numen, divine force present in everything, in stone, in wood, in the door, in the threshold. Lares, spirits of ancestors, and guardians of the home. Penates, guardians of the pantry. You might stop for a second, break off a bit of bread from your loaf, throw a pinch of salt into the flame of a lamp, and whisper, Lares, protect my house from fire. Grant me good fortune in trade. Without pathos, without priests. Just businesslike. Roman religion is often pragmatic. Roman religion is often pragmatic. I give you a sacrifice. Do ut des. You give me luck. Nearby might be a larger temple. There, priests' pontifices perform complex rituals, divine from the entrails of sacrificial animals, haruspices. The rumor spreads that an unusual omen has been seen, a two-headed lamb, or blood rein. The city freezes in anxiety. The gods must be appeased. And you ask yourself what is more frightening for a Roman, the anger of the gods, or the anger of people? Probably still the anger of people. Gods can be appeased, sacrificed to, but a ruined reputation, that's a lifelong stain. In Rome, everything is decided by connections in your name. If bad rumors spread about you, you're finished. No one will lend you money. No one will invite you to dinner. Your children won't find good husbands or wives. Reputation is a currency, more important than sestresses. Evening, dinner as the stage of life. The sun is setting, the workday is over. Time for dinner. But dinner varies greatly. If you are poor, your dinner is simple and unpretentious. Again, stew, bread, pulsimer, porridge with vegetables. Meat, on major holidays. You eat in your cubbyhole, by the light of an oily lamp that smokes and burns poorly. Or you go out into the street, where neighbors have already brought out stools, and are dining right under the open sky, escaping the stuffiness. This is a time of quiet conversations, children's laughter, the simple joy that the day has passed and you're still alive. If you are rich, the scene begins. A dinner party. This is an event that can last for hours. It's a display of the host's status, intellect, and taste. You've received an invitation from a patron, a friend, a business partner. You need to arrive on time, but not too early. Clothing. Your best tunic, and if you have a toga rarely worn, only on especially solemn occasions, you might wear that too. You enter the triclinium, the special dining room. Along 3 walls are couches, clini. On each couch 3 people can recline. Recline. That's the key word. Romans don't sit at the table like we do. They half lie, propped on their left elbow. The right hand is free to take food. Women initially ate sitting, but by the end of the empire, they also began to recline. You take your place. You might be wearing wreaths of ivy or roses, a symbol of merriment and dedication to Bacchus. Slaves wash your feet, or you wash them yourself. The first course, bustadio, is served. Appetizers, eggs, salad, olives, marinated vegetables, oysters. Wine flows, but still diluted. And now the main event begins. Conversation. Dinner is theater. You must be witty, but not insolent. Know when to praise the host, and when to remain silent. Many bring clients along to entertain them. Some invite a philosopher or poet to recite poetry for their supper. The second course, mensa prima, the main dishes. This is serious now. Roast boar, stuffed dormice, flamingo with feathers. Yes, they were served whole, with the feathers reattached after cooking. Sow's udder, fish in garum sauce. Exoticism is prized above all. The stranger the dish, the richer the host. They eat with their hands, sometimes spoons. Bones are thrown on the floor. Slaves will pick them up. The third course, mensa secunda, dessert and wine. Fruits, nuts, honey cakes. Wine is now drunk less diluted. Conversations grow louder, laughter more free. There might be dancers, acrobats, jesters. There might be a poet reciting freshly composed epigrams. And here you are, half lying on soft cushions, chewing candied fruits, listening to the neighbor on your right tell a salacious story about the prefect's wife, while the neighbor on your left tries to wheedle out of you how much you paid for that amphora of Falernian wine. You feel part of this world, the world of power, money, and intrigue. But you also understand that fates are decided over this dinner. Today you're a guest, tomorrow, a tool in someone's game. Dinner isn't about food, it's about politics. Spectacles, theater, gladiators, and popular euphoria. But not every evening is dedicated to dinner. Sometimes, and quite often, Rome calls for spectacles. The city loves when the crowd gathers to experience emotions in sync. Theater. You might go to the theater of Marcellus or Pompey. Plays are based on Greek models but with Roman flavor. The comedies of Plautus and Terence are full of earthy humor, disguises, mix-ups, lecherous old men, and cunning slaves. The crowd reacts wildly, whistling, stomping, shouting, roaring with laughter. If the play is boring, they might boo the actors off the stage. Theater in Rome isn't elitist art, it's a popular festivity. The circus. The Circus Maximus is on a whole different scale. A huge arena for chariot races. A crowd of 150,000 people roars like a stormy sea. 4 factions of charioteers: reds, whites, greens, blues. You choose a team and root for them as if it were a matter of life and death. Huge bets are placed. Charioteers are superstars, rich and famous like modern rock musicians. The races are madness, dust, thunder of hooves, the crack of breaking chariots. You shout yourself hoarse. The amphitheater. The Colosseum not yet built if we're in the 1st century BC, but gladiator fights already exist in other amphitheaters. Here, the spectacle is the cruelest. Gladiators, professional fighters, often slaves or prisoners of war, fight each other or wild beasts. The crowd thirsts for blood. Habet, he's hit, the spectators roar when a sword pierces a body. The emperor or the games editor decides the fate of the defeated. Thumb up, spare him, or thumb down, finish him off. You sit among thousands of people, feeling this collective excitement, this animalistic thrill and horror simultaneously. And here's the rhetorical question every thinking person who finds themselves in Rome asks: could you watch this? Blood, death as entertainment? Or would the crowd surrounding you make it seem normal? Rome can turn everything into a spectacle, even death. And that's frightening. But it's the truth. It's part of this people's identity. Night, the dangerous city, and quiet lights. The spectacles are over. Dinner is finished. The sun has set. Rome plunges into darkness. There is no street lighting as such. Only here and there torches burn at the entrances of wealthy houses and taverns, and rare oil lamps flicker in windows. Night in Rome is a time of danger. Walking the dark streets alone is foolishness. At any moment robbers could leap from an alleyway. Gangs operate here, and there aren't enough police cohortes, vigilum, for everyone. If you walk, it's best to go in a group, with a torch and a stick. In the darkness, you hear drunken voices, the laughter of prostitutes, dogs barking. Somewhere in the distance a fight breaks out, the clang of swords. This is a city that doesn't sleep, but sleeps restlessly. If you live in an insula, you again climb the dark, creaky stairs, holding onto the wall with your hand so you don't fall. On the landing, it smells of cats, urine, and cheap food. You enter your cubbyhole. You light a lamp if you have any oil left. You lie down on the hard bed, stuffed with straw or wool. You hear rats scratching behind the wall, the neighbor above again pouring something out, hopefully water. A drunken legionnaire singing somewhere far away. If you're rich, your house is a fortress, but even there, you have your own fears. You lie on a soft bed, but your thoughts are elsewhere. Who at dinner tonight was insincere? What bill are your enemies promoting in the Senate? Has someone sent a slave with poison? Politics and power are a game where the loser often faces death. You close your eyes. And here's the final question of this long day. Are you happy in this Rome? Or have you simply survived another day? Glad that it's over. This is how one day passes in ancient Rome. From the first cry of the vendor at dawn, to the last glimmer of the lamp in the dead of night. You've been on noisy streets, nearly getting drenched with slops. You stood in the forum, soaking up gossip and watching the politicians' games. You've washed away sweat and grime in the magnificent baths, where rich and poor became equal before heat and cold. You've haggled at the market, tried food at a thermopolium, and hopefully didn't get poisoned by garum. You've reclined at a dinner party, witnessing intrigues and wit. You might have been to spectacles that would make a modern person shudder. Rome is not a postcard with perfect columns. It's a living, breathing, sweating organism. It's dirty and smelly, but no less magnificent for it. It's cruel, slave-owning, yet incredibly intelligent and creative. It's noisy, chaotic, but within that chaos, there is its own order. And most importantly, it's very human. With all our shared weaknesses, greed, vanity, fear, love of comfort, gossip, and tasty food. The Romans are us, just without electricity, the internet, and antibiotics. They felt the same fear, joy, sadness, and interest in living. So, the final question I want to ask you, not as a participant now, but as a viewer, if you had a time machine and the chance to spend one real day in ancient Rome, on the edge of life and death, would you agree? And if so, who would you want to be? A patron distributing sportulae and deciding fates? His client, living from handouts to handouts but always in the know? A successful artisan? A soldier in the Praetorian Guard? Or maybe a poet reciting his verses at crossroads? Think about it and write in the comments, where would you find yourself in this city? And what would be your hardest trial? The smells that make you want to vomit? The lack of a hot shower and Wi-Fi, which we don't even notice? The constant danger on dark streets? Or the realization that here, everything is decided not by your talents, but by connections and birth? If you enjoyed this kind of immersion, if you want to live, one day, in another place and time, let me know. We could go to ancient Greece, among philosophers and olive groves. We could go to noisy medieval Venice, in the age of merchants. We could go to mysterious Byzantium, smelling of incense and gold. We could even go to pharaonic Egypt, where gods walk the earth. But for now, for Rao, Rome falls asleep. The last lights in the taverns go out. Voices fall silent. Only somewhere on the Palatine Hill, a light still flickers in the windows of the imperial palace. There, intrigues are being woven that will change the world tomorrow morning. Good night, eternal city. Sleep, but not for long.